State Senator Tom Croci come down and John Devito, I'm sorry. And you're running for a state senate in District 3. Thank you. We also have District 4. Neither have gotten back to me about coming down here tonight, and that would be Senator Phil Boyle and John Alberts. So they're also running for our District 4. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to change it up a little bit because you guys, I know, have someplace else to go. We're going to cut your times down a little bit. Sorry about that.
Happens.
Huh? Yeah, yeah, could you do that? So the first thing we're going to do is an opening statement. So we're going to let the incumbent go first, and then we're going to swap back and forth. So you'll answer a question first, then you'll answer the second, and you'll answer the third. If we have time for a closing statement.
I'm the timekeeper.
Right, so listen to Terry. She's going to cut you off.
I'll just kick you in the knee.
There you go. If we have time for a closing statement, we'll get to that. Otherwise, the 3 questions will be all that we're going to do.
That's why I suggested going down to 2, but if you need more, you can.
Right. So Tom, we're going to let you start with the opening statement. And again, you guys you have to keep track and flip back and forth.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead.
When?
Go.
No.
She's got to point the camera.
Oh,
I didn't do that. Wow, bad. Okay, go.
All right. Well, thank you. Good to be back. It's been, I guess, 5 years since I stood here when we were running for supervisor. Probably the best experience I could have had for running for state senate was to be a town supervisor, particularly during the bad times. Not only when I guess I started with the Ronkonkoma Civic when I was working for Lee Zeldin as his district director, so I got to be here from ground level at the Lakeland Fire Department, and then running for office in the town of Islip, you really get to get a sense of all of the different hamlets in the town. Each has its own personality, each has its own issues and problems. Now in the 3rd Senate District, I have a much bigger family. I have no favorite children. All the hamlets I love equally. But we do have unique challenges. What I was able to take from the town of Islip that I think we brought to Albany was get things done. The thing that frustrated me so much in town government was the lack of forward momentum. And there are a lot of things that we're able to get done in Albany in 2 years that have been itching and scratching at Long Islanders for a while. I know Al talked about aid to education, record aid to education, which enables your local school boards, by the way, to help keep those property taxes lower. I know in Sable schools this year, because the GEA was restored, they're actually lowering property taxes, school property taxes for homeowners and for businesses, which I didn't think we'd ever see. But that's happening. We're able to do a lot of good things, help clean up some of the dead wood up there, and get rid of some of the dead wood. There's an influx of younger members in the Senate, and that's been very helpful. We're able to pass a pension forfeiture bill. I got to carry it in the Senate so that there'll be a constant, we'll pass it one more time. It will go to referendum. You'll see it on the 2017 ballot, and you will be able to take away public pensions from individuals convicted of corruption in the state of New York. It was hard to do, but we did it. The other thing that Councilwoman Bergen and others dealt with was vacant unsecured homes in the town of Islip. One of the #1 issues, we did, I think, 400 cleanup resolutions when I was in the town. We were able to get with another senator a zombie home legislation, which I know right now is pretty pertinent in this room because of certain things going on in Ronkonkoma. And there are a lot of money for veterans, a lot of money for roads and bridges, $6 million, $6 million for a federal inspection station at MacArthur Airport. So we're making forward progress. We're getting things done that people didn't think were ever going to happen. And I'm pretty proud that we're able to do that in 2 years. We got more work to do. So looking forward to go back in January. Thank you.
Mrs. Devito?
Eileen, I usually like to break the ice by making a joke about being the youngest guy in the room. But with our AP government kids here, I can't make that joke tonight. And I appreciate you guys being so invested in your community. And, on a place like Long Island, where we send off our best and brightest with few opportunities for them to come back to, or where the middle class is struggling just to afford to live here, I think we'd all benefit from having a young person with a seat at the table. You know, I was born and raised in Mastic Beach, and Mastic Beach can at times be a complicated place. There are a lot of people working hard to improve their community, but you don't have to look far to see what a few bad decisions might cost you. You know, I've been working since I was 14 years old to help my family pay the bills. That means I was going in at 4 in the morning at the deli I worked at to cook breakfast. That means I was coming in after school to mop the floors. And we struggled, but I did the right thing. We did the right thing. I went on to become a first-generation college graduate, pursue a career in public service, ultimately made the decision to go to law school and wanted to come on and become a prosecutor. But when I got back here, I looked around and said, I can't afford to live where I grew up. I'm not a politician, clearly. I'm a young man with new ideas. I'm concerned with the corruption in Albany and the problems facing our middle class. I hope you'll give me the opportunity to represent you in Albany.
Questions?
Oh, question. Okay, so nothing based on 2.
Okay. Our first question is about the local economy, specifically as it pertains to our hamlet. As you may know, Ronkonkoma encompasses 2 districts, 2 precincts, 2 towns. On the Brookhaven side, plans for the hub went through without local input. Despite our best efforts, our community's wishes were largely ignored. We've since worked with the builder for some concessions. However, we know that the Islip side is now being eyed for some sort of development. How do you envision development on this side of the tracks? How exactly would you include the community? And how would you work towards these goals, given that our community encompasses 2 of everything?
Well, I think the first problem in improving the local economy is the taxes on Long Island, driving people and business away. And if you look at Albany, you'll find that for every dollar we send, we're getting back just 72 cents. And that means our property taxes are going up to pay for our schools, to pay for our infrastructure, you name it. So at the outset, I want to be the state senator that stands up to upstate, that stands up to New York City and says to them, the time where you've been using us as a piggy bank is over. We have serious needs here. People are leaving. We need a fair share of the budget. And looking at Ronkonkoma specifically, I am impressed with some of the gains we've made in multiple downtowns like Patchogue, for example. And I think that whenever we're looking at a developer who has $500 million at stake and has the opportunity to make a lot of money, it's really a privilege to be able to develop and build here. So we need to have politicians negotiating good deals, making sure that these developers are investing in our community for the long run, hiring local people, creating local jobs, getting every concession we can to make sure they invest in our airport, our roads, and our infrastructure. If you send me up there, I'll make sure to be fighting for those good deals. We've seen a lot of progress being made at the hub, but not enough input of our local community. I'd like to reopen some of the negotiation to public comment, slow it down. This has moved since Supervisor Lesko was in office 6 years. That's lightning speed for Long Island. And we need to slow down the process to make sure that we're accounting for the growth in our community. That I would open up.
Tom?
We initially had very little input. I think when I first was sworn in, Councilwoman Bergen met with Supervisor Lesko. She was our representative. We had concerns about the project. Not only the scope and the scale of the project, but there's a certain character to this community that Connecticut folks have stayed here for, and that's something that we were really proud of. So we always had concerns, and this organization was always very much conscious of what was going on and very much cautious about how to approach this project. And then I got deployed overseas, and when I came back, it seemed like everybody had either approved of it or there was some sort of cathartic change that all of a sudden the kind of the backstop that we had built against the project was gone. So I don't know how that happened. I don't know if the community suddenly embraced the project. I want to preserve, we need jobs on Long Island. But if you think that one project is going to solve what this island needs, it's completely wrong. I don't believe the governor's economic agenda is what's going to create the kind of jobs that John is talking about and that our Connect Watt students here want, and when they want to come back from college and they want to show up in an office. I don't think that his agenda and his plan is working for Long Island. In Town Hall, in 3 years, through our idea, we created that we could track 1,400 jobs and saved 1,800 jobs. Let the local governments, we know, the county legislators know what we need in order to build and what kind of jobs we want, but I don't think you can do it from Albany. In the Hub project, it's been signed by the Brookhaven supervisor. It was signed by Supervisor Lesko. I'm sorry, are we out of time?
5 seconds.
And we're in the position now that what we can continue to do is watch the development, be cautious, particularly with the scope and scale as it gets bigger. But I believe from what Brookhaven is telling me, they're starting the first phase and it's kind of a wait and see approach.
You're lucky she didn't kick you. She's got those heels on. I know. Do you have any, we'll give you 1 minute now to rebut each other, or we can move on. It's up to you guys. Or add anything.
We're carpool into the next event, so.
What I would say though is be careful. I know John means well, and I know he has the best intentions. But the last time the Senate majority went the other way, we know what happened in those 2 years. We got an MTA payroll tax, a commuter tax. We got the gap elimination adjustment. I just don't believe with forward progress that we can afford it. I know that there are great intentions up there and that they say a lot of things during the campaign season, but having been there for 2 years and kind of got the lay of the land, this is not a Republican-Democrat thing. This is very much a suburban and rural New York and Long Island thing against the sucking hole that is the resource vacuum that New York City is. Love New York City, love going there, love the shows, take the train in, great, good restaurants.
From Ronkonkoma.
But we, of course, but at Long Island, Ronkonkoma, Long Island MacArthur stop. One of the things I'm proud of. But I think that we have to be very careful.
I think I'll take that back.
All right, so you can have your minute, absolutely, absolutely.
So I can tell you that I've been consistent in thought, word, and deed. I said I'd come back and live in Mastic Shirley, the hometown that made me and gave me opportunity. I did it. I said I'd pursue a career in public service, whether it was my summers at the Nassau DA or at the Securities Exchange Commission. I did it. I said I'd raise all of my money exclusively from individuals without the influence of special interests. This 25-year-old raised 100 grand from 500 individual donors, so I'm not a bought and sold a politician. And this myth that the Republican majority in the state Senate has been delivering for us is one that has to be debunked. I don't see our lives getting much easier on Long Island, especially when our young people are leaving and our families are being split up. And it goes back to the statistic that I mentioned earlier. For every dollar we send to Albany, we're getting back just 72 cents. And yes, upstate and the city are taking advantage of us. I can tell you that I'll be putting Long Island's interest first no matter where I go, whether it's Albany, and I hope it is. And you could hold me accountable for this because, quite honestly, I'd really like to be able to afford to live on Long Island and start a family.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to the second question, and it's with regard to the casino being opened in December. Are you for casinos in Suffolk County? If so, please explain how this will be beneficial to the surrounding areas, and would you be supportive of more of these type of venues? And if you're against it, please explain how this will be detrimental to the surrounding areas, and how would you stop these type of venues from being built in Suffolk County?
John first.
John first.
Wait,
no, he went first. So,
sorry.
right. Mr. Croci, you're first.
So the referendum, the statewide referendum that occurred before we got to the Senate, we were still in town hall, they approved casino gambling. I think, again, this is one of those pieces of the governor's economic strategy, which seems to be built on certain industries. He's picked and chosen certain industries that he thinks are going to create these jobs that he likes, that make him feel comfortable. But in ISIP, we have an entirely different experience. And Northrop Grumman should have taught us that lesson. There are, right here in Bohemia, aviation, aerospace, defense industry, engineering, manufacturing jobs all over the place. We're surrounded by it right now. And I thought that it had been better, instead of building VLTs or other things, that we should encourage these businesses to stay, because I'm meeting with them. I did as supervisor, and I'm meeting with them now, and they're saying, Tom, we want to stay in New York. We want to stay here, we want to keep our families here, and we want to keep our employees' families here. But again, this is one of those things where he thinks that, we're going to build a bunch of casinos upstate, because this is also going on upstate, and we're going to build some VLTs here, and somehow that's going to get us out of the hole. I don't believe it's possible. I don't believe it's possible. When this was proposed in Medford, Dean Murray and I, who's the assemblyman there, put in a piece of legislation to ensure that any of these projects that go forward in the future must have substantial community input in the municipalities that they're being planned and approved. We did that at the time. It did not go to Medford, and it came here. It came to, again, Islandia, of all places. That was a local decision made. The state law had already been passed. I don't necessarily agree with casino gambling or with VLTs as a way to help our economy in New York State. I'd rather pursue other more prudent economic policies. But unfortunately, I know in Nassau County when this happened, they were able to move through the county government. They were able to move that away. I don't know how they did it, but I want to tell you that if there were a way that Al Graff and I and Dean Murray could ensure that this didn't happen, we would. But I am a proponent of local control, having been a supervisor. And I don't know, this is a decision we don't like, right? I don't know that we want every decision being made at the state level. Because if that's the case, you take away your local control. I apologize.
Mr. Devito?
Well, I, again, live in Mastic Beach, and we have an OTB in Shirley. And what that has done for us is attract vagrants, those afflicted with addiction, coming in, spending money that they don't have, spending time loitering outside it, creating blight and harming local business. And this has been our experience, but you don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to look far to see Atlantic City, where casinos are folding, or in Connecticut, as our colleagues were saying earlier, where local business was decimated by the presence of Mohegan Sun. And I fought the Medford Casino. I was going door to door with Rob Calarco, who's the county legislator there, to make sure that that no casino was built in Medford, and we quashed it. I'll be continuing to fight to make sure that we don't have one in Islandia, because I know from experience what it does to the community, and there's a lawsuit out trying to put an end to this, so we're going to have to remain focused. We're going to have to work hard to make sure that we don't have this come to our community.
You guys have 1 minute in between to go back. Okay, we're good. We're going to go to question 3 then. I know you guys have somewhere to be. The third question is with regard to education. How important is local control of school districts to you? And do you think Common Core supports your position? Please give specifics as to how it supports or doesn't support your position. And how have you, Tom, for the incumbent, supported your position? And for you, John, how will you support your position if elected?
So local control is very important. And I look at the rollout of Common Core with a different perspective. I saw a private corporation come in, driven by profit, designing a curriculum, trying to roll it out in a few months, putting it in on our teachers and our students, and we're suffering from the disastrous consequences. Common Core has disadvantaged children afflicted with disabilities, expecting them to perform at maybe the same level without accounting for their individual needs, has set back students who are learning English as a second language. I'm heartened by the progress we're starting to make rolling back this disastrous policy. I'm heartened by the fact that we put a 4-year moratorium on evaluations and that we've finally reopened the standards to public comment. And trust me, I'm all for higher standards. I want our young people to be able to compete in a globalized world in the 21st century. But we have a very diverse community and district here on Long Island. We know it best locally, so that's why I'm for the repeal of these Common Core standards and restoring the ability to raise those standards to our local teachers, school districts, and education professionals who know our kids the best.
Thank you.
So a lot has changed since my parents were teachers. A lot has changed in education. I think there are a lot of folks in the room who served in education in the golden years of education when it was fun and districts had money and you were able to really collaborate on curriculum. I'm not sure why they raced to get the race to the top money, that $700 million, why the state went down this path and in 4 years tried to roll it out. It was ill-conceived from day one. The actions that we were able to take as a legislature was to do all the things that John, thank you, did all the things that John just mentioned, which was to create a steam relief valve in this until such time as they can properly sit down. Districts can come up with plans on evaluations with their collective bargaining units. There are now considerations for special needs children, ELL, time. You're now allowed to talk about test questions. You are now allowed, there's no gag order on any of it anymore. So we're able, through state education, who actually did this, we're able to put that steam relief valve in. There's a lot more work that state ed is going to have to do to fix this. There are some teachers who love it. There are some teachers who say this justifies what I've been doing my whole educational career. And there are other teachers who say you are absolutely destroying the learning experience in the classroom. Am I?
30 seconds. You're good.
She's good. When I was in 4th grade, we spent most of our time like down by the bay playing with dead horseshoe crabs on field trips. But it's a different world. We should and we can meet higher standards. We're Americans, we should be able to do that. But the way that they did this, I don't want them to steal the joy out of education and detract from the kind of experience that I had at Connect One.
So you guys have 1 minute to talk about what your answers just were, or you can end and close up.
Do you have any rebuttal?
Are we close?
Go ahead. All right. Whatever you'd like.
I know you guys have another place to be. I'm trying to.
As I mentioned from the beginning,
2 minutes.
I'm not a politician. I'm a young man with new ideas who's concerned about the corruption in Albany, who's concerned that the middle class is being hurt on Long Island. A lot of the conversation that we've been having today, we should have been having during Tom's first term or in his 5 years in Iceland. And I'm sorry to say that he's dropped the ball. If you're a Democrat, it won't surprise you that I want your vote. But if you're a Republican who's sick of lip service and politicians making a lot of promises and not being able to keep them, I want your vote. So I hope you'll give me the opportunity to represent you in Albany, and thank you for having me down at your Civic to speak with you.
Thank you. We're ready
So I know John wasn't with us in Islip during Sandy, and certainly when we were actually bringing businesses back. All of you remember Vets Highway, and you remember all the vacancy signs. You remember the downtowns as well with the empty storefronts, which are filled. With a couple of exceptions, creating 1,400 jobs that you can track. That's not just the deli guy who has to hire somebody else in the morning to make more egg sandwiches, because we can't track that. But 1,400 jobs retained, and 1,800 to 1,900 retained. Companies that were going to go away, created and retained. So if that's a failure, then I got it wrong. But I think If we duplicate that statewide, that's the economic development plan that I'm talking about. The governor, I don't know that he trusts us locally to do that. But I think with a legislature that represents the suburbs and agricultural heartland up in New York State, and I've traveled the state now as Chairman of Homeland Security, Military, and Veterans Affairs. I've seen a lot of our state. And let me tell you, we have more in common with upstate and the Hudson Valley and the Southern Tier and the North Country. Nassau and Suffolk have more in common with that part of New York, resource-wise, than we have apart. If you want to create economic development and jobs, let the people who are on the ground, who know the neighborhoods, who understand the business owners, who go to the Rotaries, who go to the chambers, who go to the Civics, who live and get coffee at the delis, and are talking to these guys every day, let them make the decisions. That's not happening. I don't think that happened in the 2 years I was in Albany. We were doing it in Islip. We have pushed the governor to places where I think the suburbs and Suffolk County needs, and we're going to continue to do it. I have sharp elbows, as most of you know, and we're prepared to do it when we go back up in January. And I want to thank you all for taking the time in the middle of a week to come out to your local Civic and to sit here. This is the process. It's messy, as we see nationally, but it's the best one in the world, let me tell you.
I did invite Trump and Clinton, but neither showed up. Okay,